what actually happened is that I was going to talk about this topic. Julia was going to talk about this topic. We both usually go live at the same time. And so we were like, maybe we should just talk about this topic together. And so here we are. I think one of the biggest things that I fucking hate, let's just call it what it is, in our industry is this kind of like pedestal that things get put on of like the holy grail is work as like little as possible, make as much as possible. And there's like nothing wrong with that inherently, right? But I do think it gets really confusing when we're constantly having this conversation of like how it should always be about work less, make more. And so everyone's trying to do all of that all at the same time, not necessarily because they've checked in with themselves or because they've decided what feels best for them or because any of that, but just because that kind of gets put on a pedestal in our space. And I just see all my clients do it really, really differently. And so that's what we wanted to talk about is like, there is really no right way. Even like Julia and I do it really differently. So like, there's just no right or wrong way here. But like, again, where I feel like so many problems come like to play in our industry is when all of this shit gets like put on a pedestal. Like this is the right grail. This is the right way. This is the way that you would know you were being a good entrepreneur if whatever. And it's like,
and everything else you should feel like so guilty and shamey if you like worked at midnight or you didn't start your day till noon or you did start at 5 a.m. Like we've basically created like traps that you can't win in, and it's so exhausting. And both of us are just like if I looked at Lacey's schedule, I'd probably be like, ew, this is disgusting. And if you look at mine, you'd be like, why do you run a business? But it's just knowing like both of us are like, hone what works for you, make it super right, and then like expand on that over and over in every area of your business. So we're going to give you examples. We're going to break down what those things are to really look out for. And then like what the actual kind of like holy grail is. And like some of you will not be surprised whatsoever. But it's also just nice to hear this is like what actually works when you're behind the scenes of so many successful businesses. Absolutely. That all look different, like so different.
So different. Yep, totally. I think like the first thing that I would just say here is like, you have to get really clear on what your priorities are, which sounds like the cheesy advice. And like personally is the advice that I would eye roll when I started my business. Like when someone was like, get clear on your priorities, I was like, that's cute. Once I'm done building a big business, then I'll think about that. You know what I mean? But actually get clear on your fucking priorities, because for everyone, it really is different. So like, I'll just use myself as an example. Like I work 40 hours a week, and that is very much like a self-chosen experience. Like, quite frankly, judge away if you'd like. I don't know what the fuck else I would do. Like, I really like doing this. Like I have a very independent husband who's also working 40 hours. Like I don't have a child. I already work out. I already journal a lot. Like I really don't know what else I would do besides like watch Netflix, which I also do and am down for. But like, if I could pick something to be doing a large portion of my week, it is coaching my clients, right? But that has come through a lot of like self-checking in and looking at my own priorities. And my priority is that I like want to be doing that a lot of the time. But like the way I say it now makes it seem like that was a simple and obvious choice, but it's not, because so often like in this industry, we just keep hearing the opposite. Like so many of my clients almost feel guilty if they're working 40 hours because they're like, am I being a bad
feel guilty they're working so little, right? Because I like attract the people who don't want to work a lot.
Yeah, totally.
Right. It's like everyone's just sitting here like, I'm doing this wrong.
Right.
But could be so much happier if they just like took that off of it.
Yeah. So like what's your priorities? So like self-chosen thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So before too, I think when we started working on this, and it's definitely shifted, was like when I was traveling a lot, I wanted a lot of time to travel and to be working less. And now it's like I almost need a lot of space to hold the amount of stuff that I hold. Totally. But same thing is like I tell myself all the time of like, I don't know what else I would do if I wasn't working so much. And now it's like I'm dating, so I definitely am like very intentionally taking on less and doing other things less. But again, like I have time for all the things I want to do and then some.
Totally.
And yeah, no, I didn't have a partner for a long time, don't have babies, won't have babies for a while. So like this is the thing, and I just happen to be exceptionally good at like doing nothing as well.
And what I want to say too is that like your priorities might look totally different than either of us. Like I have a lot of moms that are clients and they have very strong priorities of like being super present with their kids and their family. And honestly, my business priorities would probably change if that were true too. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, that's where you have to do that self check-in stuff where like, I would be Ms. if I was trying to make myself work 15 hours a week, just like another one of my clients who's a mama would be Ms. if they were trying to work 40. And like, the point is to not be fucking miserable in your own business. And so that's why you have to like have that checkpoint, right?
Mm-hmm. I feel like you have too many Australian clients if you're saying Ms. Like
I do. I have so many Australian clients.
I love it. But yeah, exactly. And I think even last year in the pandemic, I could see like, I was like, I'll work as much as I want. Like, it's still not excessive. It was like 40 hours or whatever. But I'm like, totally. Oh, I'll like move some clients around to like take calls on the weekend if I needed to. Like if they're now figuring out homeschooling schedules or they have like a different client load that had to shift. I was like, well, I don't care what, like literally what else am I going to do? And so then I could like shift around and I could work more and knew I was setting myself up, but would like never be doing that forever.
Absolutely.
What's your human design type, Lacey? Do you know?
Yes. I do know.
I'm a projector.
Generator.
Okay. Just for those, now you guys can go analyze whatever that means. We don't pay any attention to it. It doesn't, I don't know. For me, it doesn't dictate how I set up my business whatsoever. But maybe the fact that like I can't like work all day every day, or I have to have breaks or whatever. But that like to me doesn't, I get that human design or whatever your typing things could be can like help you have the self-awareness. But I just know like, oh, okay, I've tried that. That doesn't work. I like this works. And then the biggest thing is like making it right.
Absolutely. So another thing that I feel like is really helpful to just like transparently talk about here, and Julie, I feel like you can add so much to this. We'll just stay on this part really quick because I feel like we could talk about this endlessly, but get team. Like team is how you're gonna make more and work less. And I think that like when you're trying to make more, it's like sometimes feels like the counterintuitive thing to do, like to hire more help, delegate more. But I will tell you, like hands down, flat out, the clients I have that are working 20, 15 hours a week, they're doing that because they have a team. Like that's just true.
Yeah, you have to.
And I think that doesn't get spoken about enough sometimes. And like, sometimes we don't give team the credit that they deserve for that, because like the only reason I can do all that I'm doing and work 40 hours a week is because I have a fantastic team. Like that is the only way that's possible, or certainly I would probably be working like 60. I don't know. You know, I put out 2 podcasts a week, a live stream, a fuck ton of like there's just no possible way, right? And so I think that's another way where people beat themselves up. Like they look at, you know, people that are so much further along with them and they're like, how are they doing that? What am I doing wrong? And like,
it's like that Beyonce also has 24 hours in the day. Beyonce has a team of like 5,000. Like, yes, that's true. And also remember what allows her to work out for hours a day or mom for hours a day or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like, again, you have to assess too, like what's going to make that worth it and work for you.
I'm like missing some of your comments, but I saw one and I'm laughing because Michelle said that we're both so aligned with our types and that A Lit Up Life is the ultimate generator name. I like
That's why I'm like, I don't hate any of those things. I just don't know them well. But then people tell me, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so that.
Yeah, totally. So like, if this is something where you're like beating yourself up of like, why is everyone able to like, whatever, like Julie is able to do what she does because she has a team. I'm able to do what I do because of that too. And so like, just be really careful what you're seeing and also be like willing to ask people. Like, I think we have 6 contractors right now. I would have to like verify that in my head, but like effectively, that's why this
But
shit is all happening, right?
but I also have like contractors in the business, but then I have a personal assistant and I have a house cleaner, housekeeper, and I have a personal trainer, and I have like all of these other things as well, because I'm like, I can't even hold like ordering groceries and cooking my own meals and deciding what to eat tonight to run, like if I wanted to run the business with this, which I do, like I want to be in the business as much as I am, but there's just like that trade-off there too. And people are like, oh my God, but I could never like let someone have the passwords to everything I own and pick up my dirty underwear. Like, guess what? If I don't, I can't do the other thing that like brings me way more joy and makes a way bigger impact in the world.
Or like even just like, you know, for me, like my home team, so to speak, is just that I have like a really supportive husband. And I'm really lucky there too. Like Kenny takes care of our meals on weeknights, like things like that, you know, like it really does make a huge difference, right? Yep, bookkeepers and accountants too.
Lacey
totally.
keeps trying to convince me. I'm like, a boyfriend's so much more work. She's like, no, a boyfriend takes things off your plate. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, that can look like whatever you want to look like. It doesn't have to be a partner or whatever. But again, I think it's just like so helpful to hear that kind of stuff, because it's like, how is someone else doing this? And it's like, well, like with a lot of support there. So then another one that I would say too, that I think is just like such a big one, is just like run your own race, basically. I feel like it's just so hard because we're just seeing the front end and like everyone's highlights, which of course is how this is set up, and you know, it just is what it is. But like you might very well be comparing yourself in a way that just makes no sense. Like if I am one-on-one focused and I work 40 hours a week, there is just a certain amount of clients that I can fit in that time. If you're one-on-one focused and you work 15 hours a week, there is just a certain amount of one-on-one clients you can fit in that time. Nothing's wrong with either, but if you were comparing that to mine, like you're gonna feel like shit. Or vice versa. Like if I was comparing that to you being like, wait, why do I feel like I have all these clients? Am I like running the wrong business model? I did that to myself for a long fucking time, honestly.
Or I'll like get on your client happy hour. I'm like, oh my God, she has so many clients. But I'm like, oh yeah, like if I did this in this way, I would have like so many more than you'd be like. Everything is so different. And even within your own business, something I see a lot for clients, like today I was helping someone transition into having a wait list and being sold out for the first time. And she's like, am I really sold out? Like, I know I can take more. I'm like, you could take more, but at a cost at this point, right? Then you don't have free time to digest, and you don't have time to like create all of this amazing content that's going to help you launch an even bigger program where you serve more people and make more money, right? And so it's just constantly balancing that even for yourself as well. And just because you could do it at one point, now maybe you have a kid or a kid home because of COVID and all of those different things, like you also have to kind of juggle, but make it still like it's your own thing to figure out. It doesn't really matter what anyone else is going to do. Like they got a nanny, so what? You didn't. Like you want to be there at night. So then you stop working and you got to figure that out.
100%. Like I really think, and I don't say this in like a negative or self-deprecating way, but like if I have a kid, I probably will just make less income.
Right.
And I'm not saying that like kids make you less income. That's not at all what I mean. I just mean, I know that like I like a one-on-one business model. And so that might be a trade-off that I will have to experience. But what I'm going to have to focus on if that time ever comes is to like run my own race, like to not be comparing myself to the Lucy that's sitting here today, number one, but to also not be comparing myself to everyone else. Like, I really think that I think about this all the time with our industry, but it's like not only probably, but like it's one of the few industries where like how well everyone else is doing is just in your face all the time. Like
the CEO of like Google versus Amazon, like they're not watching each other's lives
all
like
day.
and posting,
yeah.
Like one, they're too fucking busy to care, but it's like that's just not like behavior you display. But here it almost is because you're selling a lifestyle. And so you also have to remember like to use your discernment as people share that, right? And it's like, and also I can't, like people are like, yeah, but you only share the highlight. Well, I also am not going to live stream my entire life. So like by default, I can only pick and choose some of what I can share every single day. And so I think that's important to remember, is like, it's not necessarily, now some people for sure do it manipulatively and like in a very deceiving way, but a lot of us are just like busy living our lives and doing our things and we don't mean it, but then the person on the receiving end forgets to like have that bigger perspective and discernment, and it can be really, really unhelpful if you're like then turning around and making yourself wrong and doing it like not the right way.
I mean, I like laugh at this sometimes, but like I don't share any of my life, honestly. Like,
yeah, you don't.
I really don't.
Look, Lacey got married.
Yeah, like I think that like I got married thing was like the I think I shared when I got engaged and when I got married, and pretty much everything else in between has been business.
Yeah.
I guess I do on Happy Thoughts more share life stuff, but like it's almost not even I don't even know how to put this. Like it just, that's like what's aligned for me. It's not like I'm like against sharing it or whatever. I just never have. That's never come naturally to me. I don't think I had posted a single photo on Facebook until I started a business. Like that's just not who I am. But I think it's so important for people to remember that, where it's like you're watching like without context at all in some cases. And so you just can't assume that you know. And so like, yes, of course, we're going to share like wins and highlights and stuff like that to a certain extent, but also like, I think we all have to digest that with the context of knowing that. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're digesting my shit, like you're probably like, okay, but I also don't even know what her whole day looks like. You know what I mean?
And then even if I showed you my whole day, you don't know my childhood. You don't know this. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like we forget 100%. All of this because we get like so sucked into like whatever that fuel is that can make us feel bad about ourselves, because secretly we like love doing that, which is also like a whole other existential kink kind of thing, right? But it's just so helpful to see that and like remember that whenever you look at something, or if you're telling yourself you should do something in your business because it's the right way. Like I had a client that I was just working with, and they're like, well, I have to like be more vulnerable because like vulnerable is the thing that sells. I'm like, no, like sure, there's a beauty to like letting people see you, but you always get to decide like how much that is and what that is. And like to your point is like, I could easily be like, oh, like Lacey, like you basically like the more you vulnerable you are and the more of you show, the more money you make. Like that is a belief I hold. But like I could easily look at you and be like, well, then it wouldn't make sense why you make so much money in my like that frame, right? And you'd be like, yeah, for me, it's like showing your life is just like, oh, why would you do that? And I'm over here like, yeah, look at everything. Here's me like naked doing everything. And you're like,
yep,
what? That can't make, and it's not that it can't make you money, but we've created all these little traps in this business of like, you have to do this to get this, or it should look this way. And it's so exhausting because it's just not true, but we look for the evidence that works against us usually instead of like, where are the people doing it my way, just to validate it. And even for me, like I think you and I worked on this a lot of like, I don't see a lot of people that are just like out there on the internet in their lingerie talking about pleasure, doing all these things before I created this like whole niche of the pussy vortex. And I was like, well, then fuck it. Like, I'll be my own evidence, or the way that I talk about wealth and money and certain things. And it was like, okay, well, either look for the evidence or go be the evidence, but don't ever say you can't have it because you don't see the evidence.
Totally. I mean, on a whole separate note, which we won't get into too much, but like, this is like, I think in some ways innovation. Like if you're being vulnerable because you think you're supposed to be vulnerable, that's not like being innovative at all. Like for me, like I've just found other ways to do it. And it's called me to be like more innovative by like sharing client files and different things, like by having literally be the way it is. Like
someone's watching you coach.
Yeah.
So vulnerable, but then you don't have to like share your personal life because you just did it your way.
Exactly. So I think, and same with you, like if you were like trying to do it how everyone else is doing it, you probably wouldn't have your like ass on the internet necessarily. But like it's just totally been like about following what feels good to you and then like not being in comparison around that. Shirley says that she's gone from being super visible and vulnerable to the opposite, and now she earns way more because it feels safer and more in alignment. 100%. I really think it's that.
Yeah. And this is kind of our next point that we wanted to make is like everything works and gets so much easier when you make yourself right? So most of what we're doing is like, well, I have the wrong strategy and I'm being the wrong amount of vulnerable compared to so-and-so. Like I'm too much compared to Lacey and I'm too little compared to Julia and I'm too sexual or not, or I'm whatever, right? And so we're always just trapping ourselves in like the levels of wrongness of either too muchness or not enoughness or right or whatever. And instead, Lacey and I, like, one of our biggest
Yeah.
things is like, just make it all right.
I really, really, really think that that's so important. Even just from like a cognitive perspective, let's say your brain hates doing shit you think you're really bad at.
Yeah. It's scary. You're
Hands
like, ew,
down.
why would I?
Your brain is always going to hate doing shit you think you're bad at. So if you think you're really, really, really bad at writing content, guess what your brain is going to hate? Writing content. If you think you're really, really bad at being vulnerable, your brain's going to hate whatever that is, right? And so what you're setting yourself up there to just feel a lot more struggle in your business, because now you're in a fight with your own freaking brain, which we all are anyway for various reasons. So don't add to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I was telling my mastermind this morning, I was like, literally, that's all your brain's doing, whether it's like by design of your brain, by living in the patriarchy with all of these things going on. So it's like, you're already fighting it. So don't add to it. Your whole job is to kind of like come and clean that up.
Exactly. So like, if you think about my business, let's just use the example we were going on. If I was like watching everyone else and making myself wrong all the time, that I really don't share my life and what that looks like, I would hate getting on social all the time. I would feel really stressed about it. I would feel like totally overwhelmed by content. I would feel like really like disappointed about my life and how it's not cool enough to like show on the internet all the time. And like all of this stuff, like it would make it so fucking hard for me to show up in my business. And so I kind of have to make myself right. Like I have to choose the story of like, I'm doing what's best for me. I'm doing what's in alignment for me. I'm so proud of myself that I'm willing to do it in the way that feels good to me so I can enjoy my business. And so like I have to, being a strong word, but like I literally, for me personally, have to tell that story
because you want to feel good, right? Like your value is, I want to feel good and enjoy the experience. Therefore, I have to do what's in my power and control to have a good experience.
Absolutely. And I fucking love showing up because I have that story, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes it so much easier. And you're just like, oh, this is just the thing I do. And I'm sure everyone listening has something that you're like, well, I should either be on Clubhouse or do these things or do reels or whatever, because this is like what you should do. And it's like, well, like, what's the thing you want to do? Go do it really well. It's not that we also never do new things that are like hard and uncomfortable, but we're like very discerning about what we're going to add on top of it, because there's probably already so much you guys are doing that you could make right, that would give you like that super boost in your business, that would give you the momentum and the results that you want before you even had to add on another thing.
And that really is the path to the like work less, make more kind of thing, why it has to be making yourself right. Because number one, it's going to look different from everyone else's. So you're going to have to find a way to make yourself right. And number two, by working less, you have to get really, really focused on one thing and do it really, really well. Right? Like if I wasn't working 40 hours a week, I probably would just be focused more on the podcast. Like I might not even be live streaming the group as much, or maybe the opposite. Like maybe I would not really have the podcast and I would just be super double down on like the group. And so you have to feel like you're doing it right. But like to Julia's point, when you're not doing that, what you're going to feel like is like, I'm supposed to be doing all of these other things and I'm fucking all these things up by not being like, I think this one's such a big one right now that you just said, like, I need to be more of an early adopter on Clubhouse. And if I'm not, I'm getting it wrong and I'm doing it wrong and all of this stuff. And it's like, well, that's not the path to working less. I'll tell you that right now. Like, that's just the path to adding more and more to your plate and getting further and further away from like, I want to work less, right?
Right. And it's also for both of us that focus on like feeling good or pleasure, or however you want to frame it, it's like also not going to make it feel any better. And so then it's like, even if you did like take off on Clubhouse or your podcast was like the most popular, but if you're still telling yourself you're doing it wrong, then like, and we see this with clients, and a lot of us as ambitious women and entrepreneurs have probably, or even if you've worked in corporate or whatever, have had results and success and you still felt crappy because you were making yourself wrong. That it was like one of my clients say was like, oh, I've had like 2 6-figure years, but I didn't do this one thing. And I'm like, wait, what? That's a gold mine. Like, that's amazing. Everyone needs to know this about you. But she's like, but what about this like one thing that like I didn't do? I'm like, wow, like we do this to ourselves all the time. Like I guarantee you watching like you're doing it in your marketing, you're doing it in your money stuff, you're doing it in how you run team and your business model and how you do life and whatever that is. And it's like, just imagine how much different your experience would be if all of a sudden you're like, nope, my desires are right, the way I do it are right, the timing is right, like all of those things, just like, then you really are like, well, what do I do with my free time and all this worry that I used to carry around?
It's so
that's
true.
The biggest thing. When my clients are like, what do I do with all this time? It's like, no. What do I do with all this like self-kindness and freedom?
So it's so funny that you said that, because I had a client recently who we were having a conversation, and you know how like sometimes those like things like slip out and you're like, wait, what the what? You're doing what? And she was like, she re-listened to every podcast she recorded 3 times back before she would,
bless you, whoever
post it. And I was like,
that.
Did you say 3 times? Like, wait, what?
I don't even do once, but like 3 times. Like, please tell me.
Right. And she was just like, I mean, like, it was very genuine. Like, she was trying to see, like, how can I improve? Should I have this different? Should we edit something different? Like, is this okay? Is this good enough? Is this whatever? And I was like, and the reason that even came up is because I was asking her, like, why has it been hard for her to get a podcast out?
Well, now we know. Because there was like 30 revisions.
So stressful. And so then she hasn't been doing that now. We like, you know, processed all that. And the other day she like messaged me and was like, wait, I have all this time now that I'm not like stressing this and worrying about this and re-listening to it a million times and all of this stuff. So it's like, that's such a small example, but we don't realize, or I mean, that's such a big example, but we don't realize how the small ways in which that shows up. Like, how many times do you read your posts? How many times do you double check that email? How many times do you think about that response before you send it to a client? Like, all of that compounds into the, wait, why am I working so much shit really, really, really fast? Because you feel like there's this huge potential that you're always fucking it up, right?
Yeah. And I think it's worth noting here, like one thing that comes up for me, because I know our clients hear this a lot of like, we're just like, make yourselves right. And then people are like, well, what if I do get it wrong? Like there is a like, I don't know, if you realize later you should have done it differently or harm is caused or whatever. And Lacey did a really good, like client takeaway thing of the day, whatever you call this. But it was like, okay, and I can always make it. Like, I might not get it right, but I can make it right. And like, that's all under the premise of like, I'm still going to make myself right. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I like right now I'm renewing my mastermind, and there was like, how it got presented and the changes we were going to make, everyone was like, hell no, like this doesn't feel good. And I was like, oh, okay, let me make it right. But if I was sitting there making myself wrong of like, you never get to change things and you can't scale yourself out of your business and see this and this, and instead I was like, okay, well, like this was right that I like approached it, went for it, and now I have feedback, and like, let me make myself right and make the situation right, and like we're all good. And I moved through that so quickly, but that could have been like such a huge thing. And I see this like, again, there's so many small ways we do this in our business and then big ways all the time that then you never get anything achieved.
We like absolutely weren't gonna did not talk about talking about this, and I don't want it to be like this huge topic of conversation. However, I think like just as a broad scale of things that a lot of us have seen in this industry right now is like, and when people have really done something wrong, the problem isn't that they've done something wrong. The problem is that they're not going further to make it right afterwards. And so I think that's just so important to hear, because like we're so scared to get it wrong because we watch some of these things go down in our spaces and we're like, oh God, I never want that. But the truth is, it's not really about, are we going to fuck up? We are all going to fuck up in some way, shape, or form over the course of years and years in business. I've done it plenty. Julia's done it plenty. Are you going to make it right? Do you trust yourself to do that? It's a hard thing to do, but like having that like belief and trust in yourself to do that, and then being able to show that to your mastermind, your audience, whatever, that's when things really can continue for you. When you just refuse to make something right,
that's when you have a problem. So it's
that's
like
the problem,
right? But
right?
It's like always make yourself right and then make it right also. And like
Yeah.
when you can hold yourself to that high level of like, to me, that's kind of that integrity piece there. Then like ever,
Totally.
like one of my clients just wrote, and I didn't stress out at all because I knew you would make it right. So I trusted me and I trusted you. I bragged
Yeah.
like, and it all got taken care of. But like we all could have beat ourselves up of like, what, like I'm making myself so wrong that I'm mad or I feel some kind of way or that I did this thing that like pissed off my clients. Like, well, what the fuck ever, just fix it. And not from like people pleasing, just like I want to make this right. I like very much value everyone having a good experience.
Absolutely. And I think that, that is how you can do the whole move forward faster, make more, all of that kind of stuff, because you're willing to like go for things and try them. And then you're willing to figure it out along the way. Like you're just never going to know sometimes. Like you wouldn't have known like, oh, this is going to be really not well received, or you would have never done it. But then when you got that feedback, you're like, oh, wait, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, let's fix it fast. So I think that that's just so helpful to see of like, this is what creates speed sometimes, is being able to move through things like that. So, making yourself right all the time doesn't mean you have no accountability or no feedback mechanism or no like mirror reflected back to you. It just means you're willing to have that reflected back to you, basically, right?
Exactly. And then do something about it. Whereas you see people like also like the whole Rachel Hollis thing is like she's just not willing to do anything
It's not making
different
it
or like,
right.
yeah,
No.
or has any desire to make it right. It's like, no, like I'll just make myself right and everyone else wrong. And I think that's the other part is like, if you're going to make yourself right, you kind of also have to make other people right, even if you like disagree with them, which is like a hard thing to swallow. But then it doesn't mean you like approve or you're like, okay, great, this is how I would do it, moving on. But do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, like, well, I think the way you're saying it to me is like with clients. Like, I think that that's why both of us have like returning clients that have really good experiences. It like reminds me of this like concept from therapy, which is like unconditional positive regard. So it's like being able to give that to yourself really helps you give it to clients, which is why it's easy to have clients, like I was saying earlier, that like have all different businesses and all different models and all different needs and all different priorities and desires and whatever, because like you can give unconditional positive regard in that way when you are feeling like you're in a good place and feeling like you're getting it right or will make it right. It's easy to give that to other people. Like I can give my clients that, benefit of believing they're getting it right too, and holding that truth for them and holding that space for them, and not being the coach that like gets on a call and tells them all the 52 ways they suck, like, which like literally happens, by the
I
way.
know,
So
it's so, it
yeah.
like blows my mind when I hear that. But yeah, exactly. Because, and then, you know how that person's operating. Also, just want to kind of like, I know we'll just touch on this because it's not like the whole point of it, but you can also like make yourself right for the like kind of self-sabotagey or the things that
Yep.
you deem as wrong. And I think that's like one of the most key places to do it. And it's like, I totally see this as like, the reason I feel like I get so supported by you is like I just tell on myself all the time, even when I'm like having a bad thought or I'm like in resistance or making myself super wrong, I still like make it right by going and telling on myself. And for clients and everyone watching too, it's like, okay, so make it right that you have resistance, make it right that you haven't posted in 3 weeks, like make it right that you bailed on your launch, and then figure out the next thing you need to do. But it's so much harder to like get yourself to do anything if you're like fighting yourself on it, even on like, you're like, I don't want to feel this and I don't want this to be my experience. Like it's just that acceptance and approval of it so that you can move through.
This is such a stupid example, but I'm going to use it because it like literally just happened to me last week and it's so funny. But it's like I hadn't been working out that much, and I like kind of had this like day, this really like I was kind of feeling really shitty about it, is the point. Like I just couldn't get myself there, basically. And so I said
Can't
to
relate.
Kenny, I know, right? Sound familiar? I said to Kenny, I was like, you know what? Like maybe I'm just not gonna work out for a little while. Like maybe this is just like my brain and my body saying to me, because like usually I'm a super motivated worker outer, so it was like really off. And he was like, yeah, like maybe you just like gotta take a break, whatevs. And I was like, yeah, that feels really good. I'm just gonna take a break. Like I'm getting it right. Like maybe this is just my brain and body telling me that. And then fucking no shit, the next 2 days I like woke up and was like, where are my weights? Like I want to do this thing. And I think it was like literally just because I stopped making myself wrong for it. I was like, oh, okay, well, here's how I might be getting it right. Like maybe I just really need to listen to my body right now. And then immediately there was like an opening for me to be like, you know what? That actually feels good and fun. But when I was in that place of like, I'm fucking it up, I'm doing it wrong, I can't believe I'm not doing it, like I just couldn't get there. It's just so interesting.
Yeah, and I think this is true of anything of like dieting and how you're dating. I was telling Lacey of like, oh my God, I don't actually know if I even told you this, but I feel like yesterday one of my biggest like realizations was like I was just making myself so wrong of like,
Yeah.
is it wrong that we haven't like had the DTR conversation and that I haven't said this or asked this or da da da? And she's like, you like just can't do it wrong. Like this, you just have to date like how Julia dates and figure it out and trust it. I was like, ew, really? There's not like a right way to do
It's
this.
very
And then
disappointing news.
and me, right, but like this is just true in every area of my life that I've ever like one seen results, but more importantly enjoyed the experience and the result, right? Like because again I think that's the most important part. A lot of people could get you results, but we both want you to have results that feel good. And so this is like that huge piece that will dramatically change that experience. Like I told my clients this morning, like sure, freedom looks like time and money, but if you don't have freedom from your own like self-abusive thoughts, you don't actually have freedom. Like rich people and people who are like, whatever, you're just like a trophy wife with nothing. That's not freedom if they feel bad all day long, right? Like I don't want that. I would much rather work as much as I do, but make myself right and then have freedom. And then when I do have free time or excess money or whatever to spare, I get to enjoy it. And I think that's just like such a good example because we all know the like rich, miserable millionaire thing.
Totally. It's so true. And I think that that's like, that's the whole thing here is like, are you wanting to kind of find the way to do this that fits you? And that's why I said like, yeah, we can talk about work less, make more. It's like getting support. It's getting clear on your priorities. It's like running your own race. It's making your, like all of that. But what we're really talking about is that that's not even the holy grail either. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, yes, we can tell you what things tend to work to get there, but also like that is not necessarily the best thing because you just gave that example, like that stay at home trophy wife that's like has all the time and money and still doesn't feel good. Like I really think like most of the point of all of the things we're doing are to feel really good. And so you can kind of like hack the system by doing it more. And also like, I know people that work 15 hours a week and fucking hate their businesses. So it's like not like work less, make more is actually like you can work 15 hours a week and hate it. You can work 40 hours a week and think you're like on cloud nine. Like it just really depends, you know?
Right. Which is why there's like, I feel like both of us are just like on our clients all the time is like the mindset work and the this. And again, it's not that we don't value strategy and we don't want you executing, we don't want the right business model, but like we could still hand you all of that for what like you think and we think is right. And then you're miserable and you're like, well, why? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Your brain's being mean.
Totally. And I mean, I think you and I both definitely believe this, but that's why I think it's so important to have a mentor that's helping you figure all of this out for you. There's such a temptation in our space to just find someone else's steps or hacks or whatever and do that. And I totally get that temptation. Like it makes sense. And like, of course that feels the most like safe and comfortable and all that. But like, I mean, like literally this is why I'm like so invested in coaching the way I am is because I just think it's what's going to transform you. Like you were just saying to me earlier today, Julia, like how I've like really kind of just gone all in on that because it's just where I like think the transformation lies is someone that's willing to like hold that mirror to you. Quite honestly, both of our jobs would be significantly easier if we were just saying, just do this, just do this, just do that. Like, honestly, my like my day-to-day would probably be easier in some regard. I just like personally don't believe that's the thing that necessarily gets you. I think it can make you money. I just don't think it gets you the kind of money where it just feels like, fuck yeah, like it, like I almost like you said this to me recently, and I want my clients to feel like that, where it's almost like, but how am I making money for this? Like, I feel like that when I'm on calls with my clients constantly, like I'll get up and get off and be like, this almost feels like illegal. Like I like this so much that the fact that I'm getting paid for this is like, what? Like that's the kind of thing that we want you to start to feel. And the way to get that is by getting that like reflection and coaching in that way, not just by like doing what someone else is doing.
Yeah, exactly. And what makes you feel that way is going to be so different for everybody. So then it's like, it would be such a trap and waste of your time to like be like, oh, but that makes her happy. So that should be like how I do it. And you're like, well, you made that.
Right. Like I can't think of anything that would make me less happy than like posting my butt on the internet.
Good example.
Would be hard for me to think of something that would make me.
One day Lacey's gonna try to get me to do something. I'll be like, I'll only do it if you agree to post your butt on the internet. I'll hire the photographer, I'll buy you lingerie, but you've got to post your butt on the
internet. If it's really good, we'll see.
It'll be something around dating. Guarantee you.
But you know what I mean? Just like you were saying, like we're for so many people, like if they saw my schedule, they would be like, I can't think of anything I would like less.
Totally. And then also being like, ew, you're watching like Netflix 10 hours a day. Like, okay, like if you want to go watch courses all day and you want to study more and go get 10 more degrees, like, I mean, we might evaluate why you're doing that, but like if that genuinely brings you joy, like I'm not going to make you wrong for that. It's just that most of the time you're doing it from a place of like proving and not enoughness and all of that. But still, you get my point. It's like, who am I to say like how you spend your time? Whatever, you want to work out 5 hours a day, fine.
Totally. I think the last thing I would say here too, and like I feel like everyone hates this part, but let's say it. Pick one thing and really focus on it too. Like it's really hard, and Julia, you can speak to this so much, but it is really, really hard to focus on making more and working less simultaneously because those decisions just look different. Like there are seasons for both that come together to make both happen, but like you might have to pick one. So like with a lot of my clients, like it's like, okay, we're just focusing on scaling back hours right now. And like if income goes up, that's awesome, but that's like our focus is on scaling back hours, or vice versa. Like we're just focused on raising income. And so if you have to put some more hours in right now, that's fine. And then they'll even out if you focus on both over time. But if you're trying to run at both of them at the exact same time, it's hard because your decisions aren't going to make sense sometimes. And because like that's how business looks like, sometimes we have to expand the income, pull back the hours. Sometimes we have to pull back the hours before we jump to the income expansion. But fuck, it's hard to do both like exactly at the same time.
Yeah, I had a VIP day this weekend. I feel like that was one of the most like mind-blowing moments of like this whole myth of like having it all. And she's like, you know, consider herself such a feminist. And I was like, yeah, I believe women get to have it all, deserve to have it all, can have it all, but not at the same fucking time. And if you're trying to like do those both, it gets really fucking murky. And then like all of your energy is just leaking all over the place versus like, let me learn how to have the schedule I love. And then let me learn how to like scale the money and work on that part and the receiving or whatever that is, right? And I really have this experience. I think you too, is like, it again, over time, it continuously builds and expands, and you have more and more and more love and more money and more freedom and more self-trust and all of those things. But if we try to do all of that big, heavy work at once, like that's when I was sleeping, like laying under the covers, overwhelmed, literally doing nothing in my business. If you've heard the behind the scenes part one, like nothing in my business, because I tried to do it all and just like hit walls over and over again. And it's just that trade-off that ends up being worth it if you play for the long game, but you can't quit your business after one part didn't work.
And it can take a short amount of time. Like I'm just using this as an example, but let's say for the next 2 months, you just focus on like nailing your schedule and hours in a way that feels really good. And then the 2 months after that, you focus on like really expanding your income and whatever. Like you're only 4 months deep on like really taking that far. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that that's just like, but if you were trying to do all of it all at once for 4 months, you'd be making different decisions in different directions that wouldn't necessarily align. You'd feel really overwhelmed. It would feel unclear, all of that kind of stuff. So it's like, it really is helpful in business to be like, right now I am just focused on this. Right now I am just focused on that. And then again, like do that in increments, and it really all does come together. Like I know we've done both in your business. Like there have definitely been seasons of like we got to like pull back the hours, get the schedule on lock. Then there's been seasons of like, fuck it, like, let's roll. Like, how are we building income this month? And like, both are good and serve you.
Yeah. And I think it's always, again, that perspective. And sometimes you need that coach there to like tell you of like, hey, this is like just for this launch or just for this time period. And same with like me going on 30 dates earlier, whatever this year, was like, you're not going to be on the dates forever. So like, sure, you get like less time with your friends and you're kind of like pooped at the end of the day because it's an extra Zoom call or whatever, but like, you're not doing it forever. You're doing it just for this like one sprint for something you really want. And now on the other side, I'm like, yeah, that was fucking worth it. But in it, I was like, oh my God.
Like so worth it.
Yeah, so worth it. Don't worry, you guys. We already are planning the behind the scenes, the man acquisition. Just kidding.
Man acquisition.
It's the receiving, the having, the holding.
Yeah. And really helpful to just see how all of those fit together, right? Like, it's like, I have to know my priorities so I can even get team support to meet those. I have to like run my own race because my priorities and my hours and all of that is different. I have to make myself right along the way because everything about this industry tells me I should make myself wrong. And then I get stuck and stop. And I have to actually pick what the focal point is to get those priorities so that I can actually see this whole thing all the way through. Right.
Yeah. And it's like, see it all the way through again. Like, and I even told Lacey, I was like, whatever, if I have to do like 60 days, 100 days, like I'll just keep going, but it's still never gonna be forever. Like, there's just no world where in my mind that would exist. Right. And like, okay, great. I'm going to get better and more efficient, or I'll know what to tell my matchmaker, or like my friends will know exactly what I'm looking. And like it got progressively easier, but still had to show up for that. And acquisition.
Julia's next book title. No, I'm kidding.
Now a dating coach. I'll tell you exactly how I did it. You must do it too. It will work.
Well, that's it too, right? Like, it's like, that's the temptation always, is like, there's gotta, and like, you know, we all fall into that. I know you've done that at every level of your business of like, but someone else must know this thing about making 6 figures. And then someone else must know this thing about making 7. Someone else must know how to get the man, whatever. And it's just been the constant, like, no, how do I get that? What process feels good there for me? How do I lean into that? How do I make myself right in the process? And like, again, that's just what makes you keep going in the process.
Yeah, even with like the dating stuff, right? Of like, people keep asking, like, are you official? Did you have this conversation? And I was like, wait, get out. I'm doing this my way. Like, I literally need a bubble right now so that I'm not like making myself wrong, because I'm like, oh, someone else would have done this, or they did this in their relationship, and like, surely that's what moved it along. It's like, what the actual fuck? I'm literally having the best experience ever with like the most amazing human, and I love the whole process, and I'm like totally in flow and showing up, and it's only getting better and better. But like, I could rob all that joy because of like how one person thinks. And it's not even like they don't ask because they're saying,
welcome to the internet, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and then imagine like this in your business all day long, y'all. So you got to like put the blinders on too and just run your own race, as Lisa said. Like, that's it. That's such a key.
It really is. It really is. And I think like where we get stuck sometimes is we're like, well, what's like the strategy there or whatever? And it's like, strategy is still run your own race. Like, the strategy is show up and keep going. The strategy is like, feel good enough so that you can show up and keep going. Right.
Yeah. Okay, well, we didn't get to questions because we obviously had a lot to say.
Sorry.
But if you guys are either have questions, or you want to put reflections, or you are watching the replay, and same thing, we'll circle back, just tag both of us.
Yeah. Or we could do another one to answer questions.
We'll always do. Lacey and I are always cooking up things. So maybe we just combine our Monday lives for a little while to just like do some things.
Answer questions. We could do it in your group next week or something.
Just flip flop. Or someone could just invent technology that lets us go live. And if you guys know of how this technology already
tell us about the technology, please.
We're trying to co-host and split lives, and it's not working. If I did it from my phone, you wouldn't see Lace. So whatever, we figured it out, but we'll get it done. And there's always recordings and things.
Yes. Hopefully this was helpful. We love you guys. Let us know what questions you have. Happy to answer them always. And just thank you for being here. I think it's just like so important to keep having these conversations. I love you. You.
Yep, I love
mean,
you.
also you guys, but I meant you.
I love you. I love all of you. I love everything. It's
Have
all
a good
working.
day. I will talk to you all
All right.
soon, and I will talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, guys.